Thank you for watching this YouTube video. Today we are going to be going over exactly what I do when I'm going to try to level up. Uh, there's like things you do for progressing and things you do just for getting a lot of XP fast and basically just safely leveling in an area that you don't really have to worry about dying is the biggest factor. There's a couple of these zones that are super beneficial and you can get a lot of XP doing them. So I was going to go over a couple of those zones, show you exactly which zones I tend to stick to. I mean, you know, this is my opinion. It's not the best opinion, and but it works for me. So what I like to do is I'll start with Act 1. The first area that you run into in Act 1 is going to be called the ledge, and it's going to be after coast, mud flats, submerged passage, then ledge. The reason why the ledge is really nice is it typically has decent mob density. I'm only doing this on normal difficulty, so I don't really have to think about what I'm actually doing as far as like clearing. But it usually has decent mob density. It's usually pretty fast, and the nice thing is between the zone, at the end of each part of it, there's an entrance that you can take to leave and then come back in and then reset the zone. And to do that, all you have to do to make a new zone is when you're either at a waypoint or at one of the entrances, is you just have to hold control, and then once you have control held in, you can look to see what instances are open. If it's an instance that's not a town, for instance, this is a town, so we're going to just see what's inside the towns. But for instance, let's say we wanted to make a new submerged passage. There has been no instances for submerged passage, so my only choice is to make a new one. And when I push a new one, if you check, the zone I was in has a time on it. It has a timer of 7 minutes. It's an 8-minute timer. Shows you when it's created and whatnot. And it's really nice because then it also shows you who's in the instance too. So if you're looking for a specific instance or something's not really working right when you're joining an instance and you're not joining the people that you're playing with, usually holding control and clicking on the instance, you can see the people. So yeah, and that's all you have to do to make a new one. So, alright, this was the old ledge. I want to make a new ledge. You make a new one. It's a whole new layout. There's new monsters. And you just do that from side to side. And then as you do that, you just get more and more XP. Usually what I do, if it's on a softcore league, I go until the zone level. So for instance, for the ledge, I would go until I'm level 7. So if I got here level 5, I'd grind here for 2 hours. I mean, not 2 hours. For 2 levels. If this is a hardcore league, I'm not going to be... I would still treat like normal, like a softcore league. But once you get to cruel, I would go like maybe 2 levels above the zone. So like Cruel Ledge is level 37, so instead I'd go to level 39. You could even do 40 if you'd like. It's really whatever you end up feeling comfortable with. If you're at a point where you feel comfortable with progressing, then you just progress. So yeah, Ledge is one of the areas that I like to farm in. Another area I really like to farm in is Coves. Coves, actually, I feel like no one really farms in it, but I feel like for the most part, besides the tar zombies and the birds, it's actually kind of a nice place. I feel like the density is really nice, and there's usually a lot of rare monsters, and it's also another one of those zones where you can just go from area to area killing things and remaking the instance and stuff. And it's usually a fairly fast run, and like I said, there's usually a lot of rare mobs here. So that's typically why I like doing this. The only thing you have to worry about here is those crabs and the second form of them put vulnerability on you. And the bird's projectiles are physical damage, so you can it can be a little dangerous, so I'd be careful. But that's another area I go to. So far, I've mentioned the ledge and coves, and to get to coves, you just go to Caverns of Wrath, and then it's the first area right before then. The next place I like to go to is right after Mavril. This place is really nice, at least in the ambush. I also used it in like domination and anarchy, but I feel like, especially in ambush, there's usually boxes. There's a lot of boxes normally, so it's a really easy way to just get some extra loot really fast, because you have all these boxes that show up, and they're usually, the monsters here are really easy too. So like it's usually just pretty free loot, and it works just like all the other ones. You just go from end to end, and when you're at the waypoint, all you have to do is go to town real quick. And then once you're in town, you come back in, start a new instance, and then when you're on the other side, you just go into town. Once you're in there, you just leave town again and start a new instance. You don't have to actually use the waypoint every time. So yeah, that's another place that's pretty nice. The mob density is pretty nice. It's pretty decent XP, and just like every other one of them, I'd go until like 2 levels higher. If it's a normal difficulty, you don't have to worry about it as much. Or if it's softcore, same thing. The next place I recommend, which I actually don't have the cruel waypoint for, but I think I still farm there, is, do I even have any of the waypoints for? Oh god, I don't. Oh wait, no, it's this one. Sorry, I'm silly. It's Western Forest. It can be a little dangerous. You want to make sure to bring fire resist, because all the monsters that are scary do fire resist. You also want to stay mobile. So if you don't like staying mobile and kiting a lot, this is probably not going to be the zone for you. The reason being is the archers use poison arrow, and the guys who run up that are purple, they'll blow up on you doing fire damage. So both of them are really scary, especially the ones that do fire damage. When they run up to you, they can do a lot of damage, especially if you don't have capped fire resist. So, but just like all the other zones, it usually, like, there's a bunch of mob density, so it's really easy to get XP pretty faster. So this is another good place that I like to go to. The next place I like to go to is also in Act 2. It's the Chamber of Sins. This one you're going to want to bring lightning resist instead. You can use this if you have a lot of lightning resist instead of fire resist. You could just come here instead of Western Forest. It's really your choice. The nice thing about this place is typically in a lot of the corners of the map, there's going to be a rare pack. I don't know if it's this layout exactly, but you can usually find a lot of rare packs. And some people, what they'll do is they'll learn the layouts for this place, and they'll just find the rare packs, and then they'll just go for those rare packs and kill just those rare packs, and they won't worry as much about the rest of the monsters in here. I don't typically farm this place that often, but it's a popular place, and you actually do gain a lot of XP here too. So it's something to think about. And just like any of the other zones, there's a couple places where you can zone out, zone back in, and you can make a lot of XP here. So that's another place to keep in mind. And let's see here. do this box really quick. But I'm trying to think. But yeah, and it's typically a really nice run. It's pretty safe. You don't really have to worry about a whole lot, and the only thing you have to make sure is bring lightning resist, and watch out for the spider called Black Death. The spider called Black Death can be very scary. Another really nice place in Act 2 is called Fell Shrine Ruins, right here. This place is going to be a place you go to if you don't feel like your character can handle much at all. It's actually probably the worst place to go into in Act 2, but it's still better than most places in Act 2. Like, better as in, like, if we were going to compare it to, like, you know, Val Ruins or the Wetlands or the Caverns, Broken Bridge, you know, the other zones. Maybe not better than, like, Western Forest, Southern Forest, or Chamber of Sins, but it's still a choice. Especially in the this Invasion League, it's a really nice choice because I've found, at least for me, it's a lot easier for me to deal with invaders if I have a lot of room just to run and, like, basically kite. And that's all this place is. It's just lots of room. Typically, when you farm this place, you want to stay on the road. You can veer off of it a little bit if you'd like. Just don't go too far off of it. But veering off of it can actually be really good too. Sometimes you'll find a random pack of rare mobs. But I think the furthest I'd go is like this. And then I'd just go back to the road. And then you just follow that back and forth, just like all the other zones. And it's a very rewarding zone as well. Or at least it can be. And it's probably the safest one to do. If you're worried about your character dying, if you don't have that many resists, all the monsters there are really slow, they're not that scary, and they don't really pose much of a problem. The next place I would think about going is City of Sarn. City of Sarn, this Invasion League, is a lot more dangerous than it normally is. Normally, City of Sarn is actually super safe. The only danger here normally is Precipitous. And, but even then, he's not really that scary. As long as you have a little bit of armor or other ways of preventing damage. Okay, I'm gonna get pooped on by a cruel version of a boss. That's sad. But yeah, and it's just something to think about. And it's a really good fast run. You just go corner to corner. There's usually a decent amount of rare monsters. There's usually a decent amount of XP to be had here. And it's usually super fast runs. Again, if you play Ambush, it's a really nice place because boxes are really common here. It's really easy to find boxes. So you can do these runs and find a lot of boxes. The only thing is this zone's not as safe because you also are most likely to find an invader because it's such a small zone and an invader always spawns in it. So you're probably not going to be able to skip out on the invader, and some invaders can be super dangerous here and they're going to be kind of hard to avoid. The only upside is, at least in this part of the zone, it's super open. There's some areas that are super open, so at least there's a lot of room to kite. But just keep in mind that it's a small zone, so you're gonna find invaders fairly easily. So if you're not prepared for invaders, I'd avoid this zone. Otherwise, if you're in ambush, doesn't matter. This zone's amazing. Or basically softcore league. Any softcore league, this is amazing. Any hardcore league, this place is normally amazing too. But invasion has kind of made it a little worse. Once invasion cycles out, it should be fine again. The next place I would like to talk about is the docks. This place is super safe in general, as long as you bring fire resist. And if you're ranged, ranged just gives you a big benefit here. If you're not ranged, this place can be a little dangerous. But as long as you're ranged, or as long as you do decent damage, this place is fairly safe. The only thing you have to really watch out for is fire dogs. Fire dogs can be super angry, and they aren't typically nice. But it usually has a lot of rare mobs. Usually has big packs. The runs aren't super fast, but that's because the zone's really big. It's a really big zone. So you're normally not going to full clear it super fast, but at the same time, it's still a nice zone to farm. Typically, a lot of people, at least in hardcore, though, once they get to like level 62 Merciless Docks, they'll farm it until 70. So it's a pretty good place to farm. Another really good place to farm, if you need the levels. And just keep in mind with all these places, you're wanting to farm these places if you're under the level, unless you're in Merciless. If you're in Merciless, then you can stay in some of these places a little longer. Typically only the ones in Act 3 Merciless, because you're trying to get to maps, you're trying to feel comfortable with your character. But with softcore leagues, it really doesn't matter. You can move on from those zones once you hit a certain point. Once you feel comfortable with your character. This zone is called the Catacombs. It's inside the marketplace. And it's always going to be by the waypoint, no matter what. By this waypoint. The only thing that sucks about this zone is the entrance and exit is the same. So there's only one entrance and exit. So you basically, to reset the zone, you have to portal out, go to town, which isn't that bad, because then you just portal back to, or you don't have to portal back in. You just take the waypoint back. The waypoint's always by that door right there, and this place in Merciless is actually higher monster level than Piety. It's actually, I almost want to say, a higher monster level than Dominus, or at least the same. So it's a very good place to farm. It's probably one of the best XP per hour zones you can go to if you can clear it fast. But I mean, you know, that's if you can clear it fast, learn the layouts, try to figure out what's the best for you. Typically, there'll be areas of the zone that are really like cluttered with mob density, and also at the end of this place is usually a small area that big rare pack ends up spawning. It's spiders, zombies, skeletons, and it's really it's a really good area to farm. I like this place a lot. Typically, I don't farm this place though unless it's Merciless. This is like one of the last places you farm. And then by that point, you should be ready to start doing maps. Once you hit like, you know, level 70 or or just feel comfortable with running maps. Usually, to run maps, I like to have my character around 3.5k HP starting, and then having like over 5k DPS at least. 5k is even a little pushing it. And it depends on the skill. Skills are work differently with a lot of things. As far as loot farming's a little different. The two places that are really good for loot farming is caverns and then killing Val. I'd only recommend doing that if you have a lot of armor, because the rocks that fall from the sky, they can combo you, and when they combo you, you can take a lot of damage from those rocks. Also, Val's hit is half fire, half physical, and it hits super hard. It's really hard to mitigate, but it's just something to think about. The other place that's really good is Lunaris Temple. It's another place that is really good to farm. You get there's a lot of mob density, so you can get XP here at this point too. And then Piety, drops a lot of loot, and she usually has a good chance of dropping a map too. And you're only going to find level 66 maps outside of maps, but at least you'll get a map from her. The other place to farm is Dominus, but Dominus requires a lot more gear. Requires your character to be pretty good, like really good. And I'd always recommend bringing a topaz flask with you. And other than that, that's pretty much the rundown of all the zones I go through. It was just kind of more of a mini guide of all the zones. Maybe at some point I'll break each zone down, go through each one of them, show you what I'd do in a run, or a couple runs even, and then maybe have like a speed cam and then just talk about it while it's going. Otherwise, that's just something to think about. If you want me to do that, let me know. Otherwise, I might just leave it at this. We'll see what happens, but thank you for watching.